In this video, I'm going to share with you how to choose hiking boots for the beginner. If you want to go out hiking and there's a myriad of choices of boots as you can see on this table and at the store and online, how do you choose? I'm going to share some of the considerations you need to think about and also share a few of the stories at the end of this video of when I made the wrong choice of the hiking boot, how unpleasant that experience is. When you're first looking at hiking boots and you look at, should I get leather? Should I get synthetic? Should I get this crazy looking thing, mountaineering boot? Maybe I should go with tennis shoes. Even a cheap pair of flip-flops. What do you do? Well, one of the major considerations that besides the number one consideration of hiking boots is where are you going to use it? Are you going to use this on a gentle slope trail? Or are you going to be climbing up the Grand Teton or some crazy mountain in the Catskills or something? Not that there are crazy mountains in the Catskills, but I digress. So one of the first considerations and the most important consideration of choosing hiking boots is fit. Fit is the number one thing when you are choosing a hiking boot. Fit means the total length plus the width of the boot plus the heel area. Now for the ladies, make sure you definitely look at the ladies' shoes just like you do in the women's regular tennis shoes and flats and heels, I guess, because the women's foot is a little bit different in the proportion of length and heel size. Now one of the challenges is I have a pretty wide toe box, which is this space here, versus my heel, so I end up having to buy wide shoes, which I think it's marked here somewhere. Yeah, oh, there it is. There's a W on there. Hopefully you can see that thing. But one of the absolute consideration is fit. Now, you'll be told in the store, oh, you need to buy the boots, and they'll break in and they'll feel better. Let me tell you, that's going to be a mistake. What you want to do is if you have the option to go to a store, go into the store, get sized up for the shoe, tell the clerk, okay, I've got about this size, and then put them on and wear them for 15 minutes. Maybe it's 1-5 this way. Yeah, you want to wear those for 15 minutes. If they do not feel comfortable in 15 minutes, and as you're walking around and feel a rubbing spot, forget it. If there's a rubbing spot, especially the crink in the toe here, and the clerk says, oh, that'll break in, you're getting suckered. Trust me on this one. So you don't want to have that happen. So all you do is simply go into the store, slap that bad boy on whatever the size is, and start walking around. Now, there are multiple factors I'm going to share with. Don't click away. Hang on. But in those 15 minutes, you will know if they feel comfortable. Now, the break-in thing is a separate activity. I'm going to have a video about how to break in your boots later. Check out the link below in the description. But the boots should fit fundamentally around your foot. They should not pinch here. That is a murder. If you walk and you feel a tiny little bit of pressure here, after 50 miles, that little pressure will be debilitating and you'll want to throw your boots completely away. So you don't want to do that. Now, the next factor you have to consider is how heavy your hiking boots are. And weight is everything because there's an old adage, I believe it's from the Air Force, maybe the Marines, who knows, about 1 pound on your foot translates to 5 pounds on your back. That's right. So how much does a regular pair of hiking boots weigh? Well, I just happen to have a handy dandy digital scale, so I can answer that for you. Alrighty. Maybe 0. There we go. So a regular pair of Keen hiking boots, linked below to these hiking boots that I did a review for. These boots weigh 2.7 pounds or 1.1 kilograms. These are moderate weight boots. They're not ultralight. They're standard hiking boots. They are waterproof, another consideration on that. Compare that to my heavy duty hiking boots. Woo-hoo! Boy, these guys are a little bit more serious. Those weigh a whopping 1.7 kilograms or 3 pounds, 14 ounces. Another 1.5 pounds or pushing another like fraction of a kilo. Now, why would you choose these boots over these boots? Well, I've taken these boots, well, not these particular ones, but I've worn them out. These boots to Greenland in October in the Arctic. They work great. They work great on Kilimanjaro. These boots are way too light for that sort of condition. I'll explain that in a moment, hang on. So when you look at, hey, maybe I need these extra heavy rugged, if they're an extra pound heavier, you're going to be hating life. Unless you need to carry a massive heavy backpack, which would be a consideration of why you would want a heavy boot. Tend to shade towards the lighter boots because the dreary, dragging misery of carrying extra heavy boots with an extra heavy pack is something you want to avoid. Now, compare that to something like my mountaineering boots, my single layer Las Sportivas. Whoo-hoo. Now, these are much heavier. They're not flexible at all. Compare that to these guys. No problem. How about these guys? A little bit tougher. Heavy duty climbing mountaineering boots are a whole other matter. They don't flex at all and they're great for crampons. Explain that in a minute. Do you want to hike in these normally on regular trails? No, you don't want that. You want some flexibility in your boot. These are meant more for mountaineering and heavy duty climbing. Now, one of the considerations is when it comes to winter, what do you do? I mean, you're slipping and sliding around. I have two solutions for you. The first are micro spikes. You want to make sure when it's icy and cold and miserable that you can find a pair of micro spikes that fit on your boots. Why is this a factor? Because you don't want to eat it in your boots and look silly, but also in your boots, a traditional boot has what's called a shank. Yes, a shank, like, they shank you in prison. There is actually typically a nylon or metal shank in the boot. Typically, they're 3/4 length. This one has a nylon boot. When I flex it, you'll see just the toe stops here versus this guy. The shank is a little bit longer and stiffer, even though it stops here. This causes these boots to eventually fail on the ball of your feet. But that shank is a consideration, whether it's metal or nylon. That's something you want to ask the clerk or look, because that will affect the flexibility. Compare that to the full shank and weight of this carbon, I think it's carbon fiber. Yeah, huge. Some boots, like tennis shoes, have no shank whatsoever, so they can they can completely flop around. So that is a consideration for you, is to look at, okay, is there a shank in the boot? Will that affect what I'm doing? Because if you have a real floppy boot and sometime later you need to put crampons on your boot, that's going to be a problem for you because crampons don't generally work on non-shanked boots. Yeah, see these spiky things that you put your feet on? I've got links below explaining all these different items. So when you look at that, when you're choosing your boots, it's a big deal. The next consideration, waterproofing. Are your boots waterproof? Waterproof there. And these guys, they don't even say it, it's just assume waterproof because they are. Trust me on that one. These, of course, are waterproof. The big advantage to waterproof boot are they're waterproof. However, I have had certain brands, they say waterproof, they are not waterproof. Promise you that. Whew, boy, bad experiences there. More on that in a moment. But the thing about the waterproofing is it keeps the heat in your feet and the sweatiness starts to build up. So if you have sweaty feet and you develop blisters from that, you may want to consider a much more breathable boot, like say the Moab Ventilator or some such other boot to choose from. So waterproofing or not waterproofing, you have to decide what sort of conditions you're in, if you're in the Pacific Northwest versus Arizona or Mississippi or somewhere where you're going to go hiking. Waterproofing is a big, big thing. Next, the consideration of how high or low the coverage is from your ankle. These boots are a mid-height boot. They just cover up to my ankle and no more. Compare that to a full height boot. These are much better protection. You can see the little pad here. And then I don't have any pairs right now, but there are ultra high full height boots. Think your mother's combat boots. Yeah, that's right. These are mountaineering boots, but you get an idea where they go way up on your ankle. And that's when you need to use them if you're going into mucky situations or you're really slogging around, because these boots, if you're in a real slog fest, don't work. Check out my link below to my video on how to wear your gaiters and what gaiters are. that can be a game changer to allow you to extend yourself with these boots. Now for the story. So I was supposed to have waterproof boots on Kilimanjaro. I brought these for the summit, but the team I ended up with was a little bit pokey, but that's okay. It was still a good time. And I supposedly had waterproof boots, not these, but another brand. And sure enough, started raining, ended up in the slow team, this whole story, but whatever. And even though my boots were waterproof, by the time I got to camp, I could have been walking barefoot and it was about the same effect. And unfortunately, my boots stayed wet for the whole time. So just because a boot claims it's waterproof, doesn't mean it's waterproof. Also, boots that are much older, where they've seen hundreds of miles, like these boots have 300 miles or so. I've got another Keens that have 700. They finally wore out. The waterproofing eventually fails. So even though there's supposed to be a liner and it's a hole, supposed to be a boat in there, believe me, after time, waterproofing fails. So don't think your boots that are 10 years old with 700 miles are going to still be waterproof. It could be a real problem for you. So those are the considerations you want to look at when you look at your boots. Lacing systems, there's a whole thing on lacing systems, whether you have plastic laces or plastic lace locks or metal lace locks, usually metal. They don't do that too much because they're expensive and nobody wants to pay the money. You can see on my ultra heavy duty hiking boots, it's all metal. That's an indicator of how heavy duty or not. But I've never really had these guys fail. I have had these tear out once. No big deal there. So definitely shy towards light versus heavy unless you have a need for carrying a very heavy backpack in snowy conditions or somewhere real miserable. Hopefully this has helped you choose the different hiking boots for your hiking experience. Check out a link below to my Bootapalooza, where I show you all of my boots and explain the different uses for them all. Please check out links below in the description to my books, Antarctic Tier Lost, The Windy Corner Adventure Expedition 1, Jackson Hole Hiking Guide, The Most Crucial Knots to Know, the 2024 Total Eclipse Guides, How to Keep Your Feet Warm in the Cold, so totally important, and World Beyond, and my show, Antarctic Tears. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and comment in the video and subscribe to the channel. Boot choosing!